J. Kelly McCann, your thoughts, how secure do you think in Iraqi hands are Mosul, are Kirkuk, are Tikrit?
I think there's been a gradual withdrawal. Talking to Ken Pollard, our analyst that discusses, the Iraqi capability, he believed that elements of the Nebuchadnezzar division had been dropped off into Crete on the way past to bolster that, but they were definitely headed towards Baghdad to bolster the defenses around the city. Let's not forget that we still believe there could be concealed weapons of mass destruction processing amongst the oil fields or the processing plant in Kirkuk, because as you look at it from an imagery standpoint, there's just so many buildings, so many storage points, so much piping, so it's very difficult to determine. So I know that U.S. forces, coalition forces, do want to get in there and do want to bring the counterproliferation teams in there to go through there, so it's going to be a push south.
So we're going to move now from northern Iraq, from those huge explosions we've seen in Mosul, which Al Jazeera was reporting was a munitions dump going up, believed to be from a coalition aircraft bombardment. Ben Wiedemann reporting that the coalition doesn't have artillery pieces with the kind of range that would require hitting those munitions dumps, so therefore he believes it would be from some sort of coalition aircraft flying over the region. Those are the shots earlier in Mosul, enormous explosions there. Want to move from northern Iraq, though, back down to Baghdad.
Through the heart of the city. But from a big picture, what this is it's an armored raid through the heart of the city by going right by leadership facilities.
2nd Brigade of the 3rd Infantry Division moving into the center of the city. Some 65 tanks, as well as some 40 or so armored personnel carriers taking up positions, moving into a presidential palace, receiving light to moderate resistance, we have been told from different sources, occupying this one presidential palace, also occupying a park where we heard from an embedded correspondent, Ron Martz, with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, not only occupying this park, which is in the center of the city, very close to the Information Ministry, very close to the Rashid Hotel.
Bird's eye view as to what's going on. Hopefully this will damper a little bit of the war of words, so that, because people now know what's going on. But David, let me also say one thing very clear. We should temper down our enthusiasm a little bit from here we are at headquarters, in that this isn't over. The ultimate goal is the end of the regime, and there may be some tough days to follow. So as today, much like Saturday, we're able to effectively move through the heart, we should take a step back and know that it's not over yet.
I don't know how much of this you saw, but you talk about a war of words. The Information Minister, Sahaf, remains defiant. A few minutes ago, speaking from the roof of a hotel in downtown Baghdad, he called on Iraqi citizens to continue rallying against coalition fighters. He's denying that 65 tanks have entered the city. Your reaction to some of the things that he is saying?
I guess what I would say is it's a little sad. We should move this out of the war of words. The war of words is inappropriate. Some of the things he's been saying over the last 2.5 weeks sure have come to not be true. And the war of words should be set aside. And in fact, what the focus is on what these young soldiers and Marines are doing on the ground in their effort to bring down this Iraqi regime, which, as you can tell from today and what's being said, we're one step closer.
I can't help follow that up by saying only a few miles or less from where he was standing, there was a significant coalition force. Would you characterize his position as denial?
Don't know. I don't know what he's thinking and why he's been saying some of the things he's been saying over the last couple of days. It's kind of sad what we've seen said. And again, the war of words that they've been trying to wage over the last days or so, it's just inappropriate. And it's quite frankly sad to see. He is one of the leadership members of the regime. And it's safe to say that his days are numbered in control of the regime and of the country. And he probably knows that the people of Iraq are seeing firsthand what's going on as American troops are moving right there through the heart of the city.
From my own experience, Captain, I've been to Baghdad more than a few times. It's a big city. It's 5 million or so people. How do you keep a city like that from descending into chaos with all that's going on right now? People have to get water. They have to get food. You have to prevent pilfering of stores. What can be done to protect the civilian population from chaos breaking out?
David, that's a very important aspect of this whole operation, and that's why the best way to avoid all of that is for for the Iraqi regime, for the leadership of this regime, to look around and know that what they're doing now is fruitless. They need to give up and step aside and let the Iraqi people take control of their country, and in Baghdad, specifically the city of Baghdad. Also on the other spectrum of that is humanitarian assistance is flowing into the country. Today we expect another ship to pull into Qusur with humanitarian assistance. Beds, blankets, water, medical supplies, food is on the way. But right now the near-term future of Baghdad is in the hands of this regime, and the best thing they can do is take a look at what's reality and what's going to happen, and that's the end of the regime. They ought to step aside.
And let's elaborate on one other point you addressed, and that was resistance. Let's talk specifically about the Republican Guard. We heard so much about them, and the Special Republican Guard. Do they still exist, and to what extent?
Well, several divisions of the Republican Guard are no longer effective fighting forces. And that's important because when you look at a division, an Army division, when they fight as a division, the whole is greater than the parts. And several of them are just no longer able to fight like that anymore. We're still seeing some remnants of the Republican Guard and the Special Republican Guard, but the real story when you want to talk about their capabilities is what the soldiers of the 5th Corps and the Marines of the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force have done in absolutely moving through them. There have been some fierce fights. This isn't easy, and we should always be careful when we characterize what's happening as those troops on the ground. They're waging some tough battles, and there may be some tough battles to follow. So we should look at today as one step towards the continuing effort to work through this resistance.
The Marines, I understand, have been told they can take off some of their protective chemical gear. Does that mean there's no longer a threat that biological or chemical weapons might be used here?
I don't have that report firsthand. I've heard that an embedded reporter has said that. And let me give you an overall idea of what the military commander on the ground, what his responsibility is. He balances the health, the welfare, and the safety of his troops. And our commanders out in the field are very well trained to ensure that they provide their troops the best safety as they move forward. So those decisions are down at the commander's level on the ground so that he can ensure his fighting forces are as ready as they can be.
Let me ask the question a little differently. Is there still a potential threat of chemical or biological attack from the Iraqis?
I think until this regime is gone, we have to keep our eyes open and know that there's a possibility that they're going to use some of these horrific weapons. They've used them before. It's obvious to them now that their days are numbered. And so I don't think we're out of the woods yet on any of those type of weapons of mass destruction.
And lastly now, Captain, can you tell us what, if any, procedures might be in place if someone like Saddam or his sons or the top Iraqi leadership is captured? What would become of them? Would they remain in Iraq? Would they be sent to the U.S. or a third country? What would the plan be?
Well, I think a lot of those discussions will be handled at the State Department, at higher levels of the Defense Department than I am. However, there's been some speculation over the last...
Those decisions must have been made. I would think they must be already in place.
I think the one clear thing we want to communicate to them that what's going to happen is we do look forward to communications with them, and that communications will be very in one directional, unidirectional, and that is we're looking for their clear and absolute surrender. But David, let me stress, we're not there today. What you're seeing is again another raid through the city, and so we should ensure that we temper our enthusiasm a little bit. Those troops on the ground are doing really well, and as your embedded reporter is seeing firsthand, they're proud of their accomplishments because they know they're one step closer to liberating the Iraqi people. But it's not over yet, and I can't stress that anymore. There may be some fighting days, fierce fighting days ahead, and so we need to look at this as just one step in the eventual outcome of the end of the regime.
And a very quick answer, Captain. Time and time again we've asked, is this the battle for Baghdad? And CENTCOM has always been conservative in this regard. Would you now say this is it?
No, I wouldn't call this that. What I would call this is another armored raid through the city. our continuing effort to diminish the regime's ability to cause harm and fear to the people of Iraq.
Captain Frank Thorpe, thank you as always, spokesman here for CENTCOM in Doha, and I expect that, Brian, later today there will be a daily briefing as usual, and we will hear a great deal more about the big picture of the events now unfolding not only in Baghdad but throughout the entire country as well. For now, this is the latest from CENTCOM. Back to you.
A lot going on, especially with the news tonight that apparently they have found the body of Chemical Ali in Basra. Well, 3.5 hours has passed. Alisyn Camerota has had to make way for the New York crew. Let me just take a moment to recap, and we'll throw it up to New York for another shift. First of all, amazing pictures today from our correspondent Greg Kelly with a group of tanks that left the airport west of the city and drove a column of tanks directly to the picture you see on the right-hand side of your screen. That is Saddam Hussein's presidential palace in the center of Baghdad. For at least a while today, maybe even still now, U.S. troops controlled that palace. Tanks were on the grounds. They went inside. They looked around the building. Even a couple of infantrymen said they were thinking about going inside and turning the gold-plated handles and taking a long sought-after shower. Then, a short time later, we hear from Greg Kelly again. He is over on the parade grounds. Here you see pictures from earlier today. U.S. tanks on the parade grounds, literally just blocks from information buildings, defense ministry buildings, all of the key government buildings in downtown Iraq. U.S. troops were literally just blocks from those locations. And while they were there, they took aim on a statue, and we'll close out with this picture.
Go!
The explosion, and there you see the statue of Saddam Hussein being obliterated into dust earlier today. For Alisyn Camerota, who has shared the desk with me here for the last 3.5 hours, I want to say thank you and good night. I now turn it over to Catherine Herridge and Rick Folbaum in New York.
And Brian, thank you very much. 37 minutes after the hour. As Brian said, this is Rick Folbaum along with Catherine Herridge in New York. Our coverage continues. It has been a momentous 3 hours or so. You've watched it all unfold here on Fox News as we take a look at some live shots from downtown Baghdad. This is a city that has been infiltrated today by U.S. military, which has stormed the center of Baghdad, storming a presidential palace right along the Tigris River, planting tanks in front of the information ministry building. Just an unbelievable show of force, but not, Catherine, the battle for Baghdad.
Yes, defense officials saying to us that this is a dramatic show of force, a show of force that is designed to send a message to the Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein and what is left of his military, that in effect the regime is finished. Our forces targeting strategic and symbolic targets in Baghdad, not only the presidential palaces that Rick just mentioned, but also statues, things with a lot of weight for the Iraqi people. Also, all of this taking place at a time that it's daylight there. This began at around 6 a.m. local time, 10 p.m. East Coast, 7 in the west, also indicating that our forces can move and go in and out of Baghdad at will without the cover of darkness. We also learned within the last few minutes that Chemical Ali Hassan al-Majid, this is a cousin of Saddam Hussein. He has been important really for two reasons, largely controlling the Iraqi forces in the south, and also as the man who was accused of being the head of the attacks on the Kurds in 1988 using chemical weapons against them, having some information crossing the wire services in the last few minutes that Chemical Ali, his body, you see him there, his body has been found in Basra just within the last 24 hours. A site in Basra was attacked, believed to be his villa. The body of his bodyguard was pulled. They did a meticulous search at that site, and then some confirmation coming from the wire services that, coming from the Brits, in fact, that the body of Chemical Ali has been found. Now, when you talk to analysts, they say that is important for a couple of reasons. Getting rid of Chemical Ali sends a message to those in the south, particularly the Shias, that he is out of the picture and that our forces there are here to stay. But let's just go now back to Captain Nash, who's in our Washington, D.C. newsroom. I want to talk to you about the battle for Baghdad. It seems to me that our forces in Baghdad are sort of following a model that we had seen in Basra, encircling the city and then going in strategically, a show of force, and then also to gather some intelligence on the ground. Is that your take as well?
Catherine, that's the way it looks. Good morning. It does appear like the model that the Brits have used quite successfully down in Basra. And there was some discussion early on that perhaps Basra would be the real-world laboratory on how to handle Baghdad. So what we can say is that the spokesman, Captain Thorpe from CENTCOM, said that we shouldn't put more onto this than what they're willing to state, which is that this is an armed reconnaissance raid. This is a show of force, and what the Brits down in Basra called aggressive patrolling, which means that you can go in and come out at a time and place of your choosing. To liken it to an air war, that would be the equivalent of air superiority. Air supremacy is where you can go anywhere in the skies above, with certain sanctuaries, and air dominance is you can go anywhere you want anytime. Well, we're probably at that air superiority position. At least that's what they're willing to state. If we go to the screenwriter, I can diagram and bring everyone who may have just joined us up to speed on what's happened this morning. As you'll recall, the 3rd Infantry Division, when they came to town, the first group showed up out at the airport, and then we had that raid the other day where everybody came up Route 8, turned left, and went out to the airport. Well, this morning, they came back out that airport road and then jumped onto the expressway, the Qadisiyah Expressway, and drove downtown. And what that looks like, we'll zoom in on that area and we'll take a look at it on a satellite photo, so that when they came into town, what they did was they came in the Qadisiyah Expressway, which comes right up here.
They traditionally have been loyal to the regime in Baghdad, and there's also a very large concentration of Iraqi military in that area, and it really has controlled much of the north since 1991. So a very important political, economic, and military hub of the north of the country. Who controls Mosul does essentially control the north.
And we're also going to show our viewers this live picture that we have been looking at of Incirlik Air Base in Turkey, where we have been watching. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Later on, we'll actually show that. We're going to stay right now with this picture of Mosul, where this explosion was going on a little bit earlier. The shot, not a live shot, but a tape shot. So Ben, the Kurdish fighters who we have understood are sort of moving closer to Kirkuk, it would be unlikely, based on what you just said about the ethnic makeup of Mosul, it would seem unlikely, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Kurdish fighters would be used for an operation against Mosul, more likely against Kirkuk. Is that fair to say?
It's a little complicated, actually. Kirkuk is very politically sensitive. The Turks have made it clear that they don't want to see the Kurds take over Kirkuk because of its oil wealth, the oil fields around it. It's also a city that has competing claims. The Kurds claim Kirkuk. The Turkomen, who are ethnic Turks who live in northern Iraq, they claim Kirkuk. So we understand from coalition sources in the north that they'd rather not see anybody take over Kirkuk at this point. Mosul isn't quite as politically sensitive, but obviously if the Kurds were to take over Mosul, there would be some problems with the local Arab population. And we've heard from many Kurdish sources that their intention is to stay in areas that they consider to be traditionally Kurdish, which means those areas that Kurds have been expelled from, driven out from by the Iraqis. But Mosul, I would be surprised if the Kurds were actually allowed to take over that city, given its ethnic makeup. Many people here are expecting actually that the southern front will somehow meet with the northern front, that the U.S. armored columns that are making their way from Kuwait north to Baghdad, some of them may make their way all the way up to Mosul and therefore preclude the necessity of the Kurds entering Kirkuk, which, as I said, could be somewhat problematic. Anderson?
Ben, I appreciate I appreciate your ability to give sort of a socio-political status report, given that you are lying in a trench near Mosul in northern Iraq. So I applaud your efforts on doing that. Thank you very much. I want to continue talking with you a little bit, though. We saw these extraordinary night vision pictures Thomas Nibro provided to us of the 173rd Airborne howitzers pounding Iraqi positions overnight. Really the first time, according to Thomas Nibro, that the 173rd had fired artillery shells in a combat situation against an enemy in some 30 years or so. So sort of a historic moment for the 173rd. What is the strategy then in the north if this northern front didn't really materialize as had been expected in terms of the large numbers of U.S. forces? Are we likely to see more continue what we've been seeing thus far, more coalition bombing, trying to keep Iraqi forces pinned down there? I don't quite see what the end game is in the north. Do you?
Honestly, Anderson, no, we don't. What we've been seeing is piecemeal pullbacks by the Iraqi army from areas that are hard to defend, and the Kurds have come in to fill the vacuum. But in terms of a concerted effort to drive back the Iraqis, combining U.S. and Kurdish forces, no, we haven't seen it. What we've seen is, now we've seen, of course, as our embedded reporter up here is saying, artillery support by the American troops. But really, all we've seen is the Kurdish forces coming in to fill the vacuum left by the Iraqis. There hasn't been an offensive in the sense that we've seen in the south. The Kurds have essentially come in and occupied areas the Iraqis have left from, have evacuated. There has been some engagement between the Kurds and the Iraqi army, but not on a massive scale. What appears to be going on is just a gradual pounding of the Iraqi positions, the frontline positions of political and military targets in Kirkuk and Mosul, really just a process of wearing them down, exhausting them with relentless bombings of their positions, in the hopes, I assume, of breaking their morale. But there simply isn't the wherewithal, the military wherewithal, the hardware to press the Iraqis on the ground. It's just a process of exhaustion more than anything else. Anderson?
And perhaps a process of just trying to maintain the status quo, given not only the Iraqis' positions, but the sensitive political nature with Turkey and the Kurdish desires as well. It is a very difficult situation. Ben Wiedemann, appreciate you reporting from the trench where you are right now. We'll check in with you shortly on this morning, where there is a lot going on really across the country of Iraq, as you look at this, again, this live picture of Baghdad. The seemingly calm belies what is going on right now, as far as we know, in the center of the city. I want to check in right now with Bob Franken. Not sure his exact location, believed to be, Bob, on an airbase, I imagine, somewhere. Bob, what can you tell us about A, your location, and B, what's going on there?
Let's start with the military service, Anderson. I've switched to the Marines and now embedded with the 24th Marine Expeditionary Unit. We are located in a town called Falakzakar. This is where we are right now. A remarkable scene here. The Marines had come from their base. This town, by the way, is north of Nasiriyah, south of Baghdad. This town is one that the Marines had come in effect, to take it over. They came in with their loudspeakers blaring, but an emotional scene of a type that they possibly didn't expect occurred. It turns out that the translator who accompanied them, his name is Qadar Alamir, a civilian translator, is from this town. He left in 1991, and suddenly there was a joyous celebration because Qadar Alamir suddenly saw his two sons and brothers he had not seen since 1991. A remarkably emotional scene. Meanwhile, as the Marines fanned out, the loudspeakers blaring, saying in Arabic, "Keep away from the area. It is for your security. The coalition forces will not hesitate to shoot." This is what the loudspeakers were saying, but it needn't have bothered. The people of the town erupted in a celebration. Hundreds greeting the Marines, hugging them. I talked to a couple of the Iraqis who said that they were so glad that Saddam Hussein was falling. Remember, they're first talking and saying what they would expect the Marines to say, expect for them to hear. But at the same time, one of them said that Saddam Hussein and his Ba'ath Party forces had taken and killed two of his friends. Part of the operation is to try and take down or damage as many of the pictures of Saddam Hussein as they can, and they're all over the place. The Marines are also going into the various Ba'ath Party facilities here. In one case, we were inside with them in the secret police headquarters, it was described to us, and we saw what they described as a torture room. It had hooks hanging in the ceiling, a scene that we've seen in other places. But again, as they go on, they go to various parts of this town, which is a fairly good-sized town in the marshy areas of Iraq, as I said, north of Nasiriyah. They've been met by either silent crowds watching them or oftentimes extremely friendly, even enthusiastic crowds. It's quite a remarkable scene, Anderson.
Yeah, it sounds it, Bob. Was there any resistance when the Marines entered this town? I mean, I imagine there must have been. Can you characterize what level of resistance there was?
How about zero? This was an area that they were still a little bit concerned that there might be some what they call paramilitary resistance, and the commanding officer, Colonel Richard Mills, described the approach as controlled aggression. They came in, driving in with the loudspeakers blaring in an effort to intimidate the townspeople, jumped off their trucks, went crashing, literally crashing into some of these buildings, breaking down the doors, etc. But as the crowds gathered outside, there was, turned out, no need to control them. It became really a scene of embraces. The townspeople literally embracing the United States Marines.
Bob, if you can give us a sense, what is the ethnic makeup of this town? You might have said it, I might have just missed it. Is it largely Sunni? Is it Shia? Do you know?
Well, it would seem to be Shias. This part of the country would be where there's still Shias. And of course, as you know, about 60% of the Muslims in Iraq, of the population in Iraq is Shias. The minorities, Sunnis, are the ones who rule the country.
Does the fact that there is this outpouring of emotion, I imagine in some ways, though appreciated by the Marines, it might complicate the situation?
Well, as a matter of fact, this is the kind of thing, obviously we're not expecting such an emotional reception, but what they're trying to do is to come into this town to tell the Iraqis that they are the friends of them, they're only enemies of the regime. We've all heard that 1,000 times. And to try, in effect, to recruit them, to say, hey, our coming in is going to be a good thing. We want to get your life back to normal, minus Saddam Hussein or any vestiges of his regime.
Bob, I just want you to hold on while we are talking to you. We just got in a live shot right now from Abu Dhabi TV. This is a live shot of what is going on in Basra in southeastern Iraq, some distance from where Bob Franken is reporting right now. But what you are looking at is British Marines taking up positions inside Basra. There has been a lot going on in Basra, not only for the last 2 weeks or so of this operation, but in the last 24 to 48 hours. You are seeing the camera panning over on the right-hand side of your screen, British Marines in positions along the road, off the road, but on the road, civilian vehicles continuing to travel, and there you see some people walking toward the cameras. The camera pans back to the British positions. What is significant about not only that picture, but what has been going on in Basra in the last 24 or 48 hours or so is that British troops have now entered Basra from both the south and the west, and have taken up positions in that city. Now this, of course, Iraq's second largest city, predominantly Shia, but a city that there was significant resistance from the Fedayeen fighters that we have heard so much about in the last 2 weeks or so. But this is really the first time that British forces have taken up and controlled parts of the city of Basra. There's also significant news coming out of that city in the last hour or two. British officials confirming that they believe that the man known as Chemical Ali, the cousin of Saddam Hussein, the man put in control of southeastern southern Iraq during this war, has been killed in a coalition raid, coalition bombing of his property inside the city of Basra. There filed footage of Chemical Ali. It was believed all along, it was believed that the attack on his house was successful. Ali Hassan al-Majid's bodyguard, the body of his bodyguard had been identified. Now UK officials saying they believe they have identified the body of Ali Hassan al-Majid. So significant action on the part of coalition forces, that going on in southeastern Iraq, in Basra. Now as we move further further north into the west, past Nasiriyah, we find Bob Franken in this town with U.S. Marines with the 24th Marine Expeditionary Unit, receiving what he's describing as something of a rapturous response by the people there. What happens next? I'm not asking for mission details, Bob, but well, let me rephrase that then. What is going on right now where you are?
Well, at the moment, we've moved to another section of town. It's a little bit more subdued here. We see a couple hundred Iraqis just standing and watching the operation, very quietly watching it. It is nowhere near as enthusiastic as it was just a couple of moments ago. I'm trying to find that translator, as a matter of fact, to see if he can come and talk to us. I mean, it was quite a remarkable scene. So just 1 second. Stay with me, Anderson.
Okay, Bob.
You know where he is? You know where he is? Where? I need to know. Oh, okay. He's inside one of the buildings now. We're at another headquarters where, as I look over, I see the Marines. They pulled a pickup truck up in the back, and it looks like they're removing weapons of some sort. And they had been removing earlier various records from this building. This apparently is the city's government complex, such as it is, at least the Ba'ath Party complex. And they're removing some sort of devices. I don't really have a clear idea of what it is yet. They're very interesting looking from here, but I'm not quite clear what they are. And as I said, lots of records. And as I said, wherever you go, pictures of Saddam Hussein.
It's so interesting, Bob, to hear the response the Marines are getting in this town that you are in versus the response, for instance, the British Royal Marines were getting in Basra, even in the areas that they controlled. The grip of Ba'ath Party officials seemingly more strong, I guess, in Basra, or perhaps the memories of what happened in 1991 when there was an uprising among the Shia in Basra that wasn't supported by the then coalition forces. Any sense of why the difference in this town? Is it simply events have progressed so far on the ground that there's a sense that the end game is in sight?
Well, it could be, and it could be also personalities, and it could be, I have to say, in fairness, that that the townspeople realize that they better make friends with the Marines because they're going to be the ones who are watching over them for a while. Could be any of those.
The weapons that you were seeing the Marines taking into custody, are they currently where you are visually? Can you see them going to are they doing house-to-house searches at this point, or is it more just setting up a security perimeter?
Well, what they're doing is going into buildings that have been identified as government buildings and removing material. They're removing some devices now, and I'm not in a position where I can go over and find out what they are. They're like nothing I've ever seen. They're canisters, and there are 3 canisters each set, and they're coming out by the dozens, and they're putting them on a truck and taking them from this building. At the moment, I cannot speculate on what they might be. Hopefully, I'll be able to find out in a short time. But in any case, they're going into the various government buildings, police buildings, and the like, and trying to find anything they can find. Obviously, looking for any officials they might find, looking for anybody who might be described as an individual pocket of resistance. They're finding none of that. Everybody is in flak jackets and all the rest, just in case. But they're going into the buildings, cleaning them out, blowing up any weapons caches that they find, and moving on. And as I said, with a special emphasis on tearing down and getting rid of every Saddam Hussein picture they can find.
And is this happening? Are they at this point surrounded? I'm trying to get a visual sense. Are they surrounded by townspeople, or are the streets kind of clear?
At this particular moment, the townspeople are standing down at the end of the street where we are. There are probably, they're behind a barrier watching. It's just like a police line in the United States. Earlier, they didn't have a barrier like that, and the townspeople made it very clear fairly quickly that, in fact, they were welcoming the Marines. This is a quieter group. They're just standing and watching behind these Marine police lines. The street is completely occupied by Marine vehicles, and they're concentrating on the variety of buildings here. As I said, it was described as, I guess, what you would describe in the United States as a municipal center. To my right, I see a number of portraits of Saddam Hussein, various portraits of him. The Marines have started a bonfire, and they're burning those portraits. They're burning anything that is a reminder of the regime, the Ba'ath Party regime. They're doing it very ostentatiously. They want to communicate the obvious message, which is they're tearing down the regime, but they're leaving everybody else's lives intact. That's the message they're trying to convey.
Bob, do you get the sense, you said they are going to sort of or areas believed to be Ba'ath Party headquarters or used by Ba'ath Party officials? Do you get the sense that they are getting intelligence? And I don't know, maybe perhaps you cannot answer this and tell me, feel free to say so. Do you get the sense they are getting intelligence from people on the ground, from townspeople?
Well, I certainly get there's a very strong impression they're trying. That's what the translator is doing. And as a matter of fact, these buildings were described to them by members of the town. Any number of the things that they have done have been as a result of descriptions that they've gotten from people on the ground. In addition to which, when they go into these buildings, they take out, among other things, the piles and piles of documents they're looking for further intelligence.
And you mentioned the story of I believe you said he was your interpreter, suddenly, repeat it if you will, suddenly seeing his sons, who he hadn't seen in quite some time?
Well, when he came, he was recognized. And people went to fetch the interpreter, and there was this reunion. 1 second, please. Ben, just a second. The translator I want to talk to is upstairs translating. We won't be able to get him now. Let me ask you a question if I can. I'm talking to Major Dan McSweeney, sorry, Dan, who is acting as our handler here. What are those cylinders they're carrying up?
Looks like they're carrying out some mortar rounds right now. There's various forms of ammunition that are in the building, and Marines are being very careful to identify them and move them out in a very safe manner.
Be very careful, Anderson. Being put in trucks and they'll be taken away and exploded. That's what they've been doing with the weapons and ammunition.
All right, Bob Franken, we're going to let you regroup a little bit, and we'll come back to you in a little while. Events moving fast on the ground, both where Bob Franken is, north of Nasiriyah, as well as all over Iraq at this point. Bob, we'll check in with you in a little bit. It is just past 4 a.m. here on the east coast of the United States, just past noon Baghdad time. There is a lot to talk about, a lot to tell you about. I just want to recap as briefly as we can what we know. You're looking at a live shot of Baghdad where it is 12:01 p.m. Smoke and haze and smog obscuring visibility somewhat. There has been, since 6 a.m. in the morning in Baghdad, some 6 hours ago, an operation, some 70 tanks, believed some 70 or so armored personnel carriers belonging to the 2nd Brigade of the 3rd Infantry Division, moving into the center of Baghdad. Earlier it was described perhaps as a probing operation, an incursion. Later on, Captain Frank Thorpe with CENTCOM says no, it was an armored raid through the city. A security and stabilizing operation, according to Walter Rogers. Regardless, it was an operation that met early on light to moderate resistance, small arms fire, automatic weapons fire, some rocket-propelled grenades. The column moved into the presidential compound and now occupies a park in the center of the city, where we heard from Ron March, correspondent embedded from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Battle lines being drawn around the Foreign Ministry, the Information Ministry as well. Let's check in with Walt Rogers, who's with the 3rd 7th Cavalry outside of Baghdad. Walt, what can you tell us about the situation?
Good morning, Anderson. What we're seeing with this latest 2nd Brigade, 3rd Infantry Division inside the city of Baghdad, this is the 3rd day in a row. What we're seeing is a changing complexion of the battle for Iraq, and it's changing again in a way which is favorable to the United States and its ally Great Britain in all of this. We have seen last night here with the 7th Cavalry on the western suburbs of Baghdad, the first night in at least 2 weeks in which we haven't really been shot at, and indeed there's been no outgoing artillery fire. Joining me to talk about this change in complexion of the battle here is First Lieutenant Chris Wade, the fire support officer for Apache Troop. Lieutenant, what's changing?
It seems like since we've come under heavy contact a few days ago, we've seen everything from, light, small arms, RPG, mortars mixed in with the populace to Republican Guard tanks, and over the last few days, we've had just sporadic sniper fire, some sporadic RPG fire, but it seems as if now that the division's cordoned 360 degree of the city, it seems like things are turning around, and like last night was the first night in almost 2 weeks that we haven't had to call any sort of indirect fire, either mortars, artillery, or CAS, and it seems to be quieting down a bit.
When word got out yesterday that the city was now, Baghdad was now totally encircled by U.S. forces, Marines and the Army, what was that? What was the effect of that on the troops here in your unit?
The morale is great. This unit, we've seen everything from ambushes, like I said, along the way for the past 2 weeks. It's been a roller coaster ride, and we really, when we found out that the city's pretty secure and that we've taken control of the airport, it's exhilarating, and it's great to know that we feel a lot safer. And by no means is it completely safe. I mean, it's still a 360-degree battlefield with many arms within the populace in these small pockets of resistance in these towns. But we feel that the heavy force-on-force Army, armored clash fighting is doctrinally is coming to a halt.
You're a career officer. Let's get personal. West Point class of 2000. The past 2 weeks has been your baptism under fire. Talk about it.
Okay. The training that the commissioning sources provide and the officer basic course has been up wonderful. It just took over. Before you go into combat, you wonder how you're gonna perform. And
how did you perform?
First couple times when we were hit with ambushes in the south, it was pretty intense. It was just training took over.
What does that mean, pretty intense? Tell us what intense means. That's a euphemism for having people shooting all over at you.
It's just your heart races. The impacts are all around you. Whether you're not sure if it's friendly. We had the A-10s overhead dropping bombs. We had artillery firing. So you don't know if it's friendly or enemy hitting around you. It's just it's exhilarating when you're glad you make it through it. And
did you take out any Iraqi armored vehicles?
Yes, sir.
What was that like?
It was a good feeling knowing that they were after us, and I'm glad I was able to perform my job for the troop. And we brought in mortar, artillery, and with the help of some Air Force personnel, some CAS.
In the background is your Bradley, Apache on the warpath. Did it perform well? Tell me about your crew. How did they perform? Every one of your soldiers, first time under fire, baptism under fire.
They're wonderful. They performed just great. My NCO, Sergeant Sandlin, is great. Young professional NCO.
Your closest call out there past 2 weeks?
Closest call is when we went up the road here a few K and had engaged with the T-72s and BMPs. I think they obviously shot back a few times, had a couple close rounds come in, but made it out.
Were you taking RPGs or small arms fire off the side of your vehicle? What's it sound like?
It flies right overhead. It's a lot of cracking, a lot of stuff going off. You hoping that's not the one that's going to get you, but as we were pulling out, we engaged with direct fire, took out most of them, and called it some immediate suppression missions with artillery as we were pulling out.
Short answer, what have you learned in these combat operations of the last 2 weeks? And they have been hairy.
Stay alert, stay alive, stay calm, watch your buddies. 360 degrees. It's never over. It's either super hot or super cold, but you never know what's going to happen.
First Lieutenant Chris Wade, Apache Troop, U.S. Army 7th Cavalry, the Fire Support Officer. Thank you very much. Back to you, Anderson.
Walt, just great to hear.
Message to elements of the remnants of the regime that the U.S. and coalition forces can go anywhere they want at any time they want. It can't be anything but extremely alarming to the remnants of the regime to see a brigade commander standing at the presidential palace in Baghdad. We have the initiative. We were told the Iraqi forces are in some array. Asked whether this is the final battle for Baghdad, military officials said it is too soon to tell. Now, a little later, we were told by defense officials that elements of the 3rd Infantry Division control the presidential palace and that the U.S. forces are present at the Al Rashid Hotel and at the Information Ministry. These raids are not meant to be permanent, we are told, but things are moving at such a rapid pace that they may stay. Asked if U.S. forces could control Baghdad by the end of the day, defense officials said it is too soon to say. They do confirm for us that U.S. forces control Karbala. Now, one other thing, there was a report that the U.S. flag had been raised over the presidential palace. We are told here at the Pentagon that that did not happen, that the U.S. forces who were at the presidential palace did have an American flag with them, but did not raise it. That was a very sticky point a few days ago when apparently in the early stages of this operation, one unit did raise a flag somewhere, and when they raised the flag officials felt like it made a statement that they were there to stay, that they were there to occupy the country, and that is not the case. They are there to liberate the country for freedom for Iraq, and so we are told that a U.S. flag was not raised over the presidential palace, but they are in and around that area, Bianca, and repeating the latest information, we are told that the stiffest resistance was encountered by 3rd Infantry Division elements entering Baghdad near the Ministry of Information. The defense officials say the Iraqis weren't even trying to defend the presidential palace. Bianca?
Carl, I just want people to know that the video they were just seeing right there, if we could go back to that in a moment, if we could go back to that video, that is exclusive MSNBC video happening, the attacks happening around Baghdad. You can see that thick, billowing, dark smoke just filling the skies there. Those main sites we've told you, just to update you again, U.S. troops have moved into Saddam Hussein's newest presidential palace there. It's west of the Tigris. Also, the Iraqi Information Ministry and the Al Rashid Hotel. The Al Rashid Hotel, a place that a lot of foreign journalists had stayed during the Gulf War back in '91. The Information Ministry, Carl, you just updated us, was a place that really showed the most Iraqi resistance. Why would you suspect that is? Because of what's inside?
Well, we had been led to believe all along that the Ministry of Information contained a great deal of communications and command and control equipment down below in the basement of that hotel, and that is one of the reasons that it had been considered a key target. They wanted to take it down. You do know that we saw, perhaps a half hour, 45 minutes ago, we saw a member, we saw the head of the Minister of Information, if you will, come outside and speak to reporters and deny that the U.S. forces were anywhere in and around the city, that there actually was no battle going on, that the Republican Guard was in complete control, and that the U.S. and coalition forces had not taken over the airport. Right, a lot of information that was stated right out in front of the Ministry of Information, and they are protecting that area. We don't know why. We don't know who's in there.
Very different spin on things. Carl, also we have some video from northern Iraq, a lot of fires happening near Mosul. Do you have any information on that area of the country?
That is one of the targets that they have been aiming at with the air operations, if you will. They were moving into the urban support, close air support, urban I'll think of the acronym in a moment, but it's close air support in the urban area. They have been putting smaller bombs, precision bombs on the aircraft. They were using laser-guided operations in it so that they could hit those targets a lot closer. That may be part of that, but there's a major campaign going on to take down that area too, Bianca.
Okay, Carl Rochelle live at the Pentagon. Thank you for that update. Stay with us right after the break. We will be speaking with an expert live on the MSNBC's Live Line about the discovery of Chemical Ali's body in Basra.
Are you tired of embarrassing facial hair and
24 helicopters, BMP and BTR combat vehicles provided by, of all people, the Russians. We had both helicopters behind us hit in that operation, but thankfully both helicopters are now fine, repaired on the field by these extraordinary Marines who do so under fire. We're also told, Rick, that the road north of Baghdad has been cut, and enemy resistance, though sporadic, is certainly very intense for those who are facing it, and yet it's now apparent that most of the back of the Republican Guards has been broken. I'm standing next to Corporal Joshua Fritz, who is from upstate New York. He's also got some news for some folks up there that not only is he well, but tell us who those other guys are.
Sergeant Woodley, Corporal Morris, and Lance Corporal Napa, all of Tyndall Avenue, West Seneca, New York. We're all doing great. Just want to wish everyone back home that we're doing good, and we'll be home safe and soon, hopefully.
Rick Fulbaum, that's the best we can give you on this new sandstorm that's blowing up out of the south. You can see behind us not much of an horizon out there, but the fixed wing is still up operating over us, and when the enemy probed this position just a few minutes ago, they were repulsed with all of them killed and no Marine casualties. Rick?
That's good news, Ali. Can you tell us about the mission of your unit, the unit that you're traveling with, the 1st Marines Expeditionary Force? We know that the incursion that we saw the last few hours into the heart of Baghdad by the Army's 3rd ID was just simply a show of force, another chance to get some information. What are your guys doing, and how do they fit into the big picture here?
5th Regimental Combat Team and the 7th Marines have kind of led the attack up the eastern side and crossed over, of course, the Euphrates River, then the Tigris River, now coming back across the Tigris River. And what they're doing now is looking for good places to lay down some of those Marine bridges that are laid down by those Marine engineers and the Seabees to force the rest of this unit across to seal off totally any eastern or northern approaches to Iraq. The city is essentially surrounded, and as was reported earlier, the U.S. Marines and the Army can enter at will. What we want to be able to do, obviously, is to make sure that there's significant force inside for when the provisional government is established. They've got the kind of protection that they need from the residue, if you will, and that's the only way to put it, the residue of the Republican Guards and the irregulars, the so-called Fedayeen, who have been out basically building those fire ditches and making it difficult to move forward, but certainly not something that we can't contend with. Rick?
You and your friend look great over there. We're so happy to hear from you. Captain David Christian has a question for you, Colonel North.
Ali, just respect everything you're doing there, but you and I have been involved in a number of conflicts, a number of wars around the world, and you get a sense when certain things are turning and the momentum's going your way, almost like in a sporting event. Are you getting that sense that there's a change in the air and the Marines around you getting that sense that, you know, that the adrenaline's pumping and that it's going our way, and why the heck are they holding out?
David, what I think you see, one is a certain euphoria in the Marines. Today's the first day we haven't been dressed in our full mop, and I know Corporal Fritz is glad to have that suit off, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
And that alone, David, was enough to make people feel better. We got to stand down on the full mop equipment late last night, and everybody took a sand shower out here, wiped down with baby wipes, and put on uniforms that have been rolled up inside our kits now for the last several days. There's a sense of momentum. It's definite there. You can feel it in the Marines that I've talked to and the Marines I've been with along the line. I just talked to the executive officer of one of the rifle companies who's literally providing the perimeter security for us here while we fix the helicopters. These guys know that they are winning this war, and they know that it's only a matter of hours until we're fully invested in Baghdad and can stay there for whatever length of time the President wants us there. It's also very clear to this particular unit, the 5th and 7th Marines, are the units that took back Seoul, Korea after it had been captured by the North Koreans. They're the unit that recaptured Hue City. And these are the guys they know the legacy, and they're the heirs to that remarkable legacy, and they're fully prepared for it, David.
Colonel North, I'm wondering if you can give the microphone to Corporal Fritz, and if he can describe for us how he feels at this point, in this moment. We are 19 days into this campaign. This is a young man who has worked very, very hard. How does he feel right now as we get closer and closer to what is certainly the battle for Baghdad?
Rick will do. Corporal Fritz, they've asked, how do you feel now that you're 19 days into this battle and you're right, I mean, there's Baghdad right over there on the other side of that sandstorm. How do you feel right now?
I feel good right now, sir, because I know I have a team that is outstanding. The Marines are well-trained, and I know they'll keep me safe, and I'll keep them safe. So we're just waiting to get to Baghdad. We want to recover this country for them.
How about that?
I like that. I like to hear that. So as far as these bridges are concerned, because a lot of people are going to see these reports or hear these reports about the bridges, it really doesn't matter because you've got Seabees there who can put them up in a flash.
Rick, I watched the Marine engineers and Seabees build a bridge across the Sodom Canal in the middle of the night, literally without lights, in 2 hours, that our armor roared across on the way here. And I know that as soon as that right crossing point is found, we'll have reconnaissance units there. They'll reconnoiter it, confirm it. The engineers will make sure that it's got the trafficability to get armor across and to the other side. Part of the problem isn't just crossing the Tigris. Part of the problem is finding a road network that will support the heavy armor as it crosses not the bridge, but the trafficability on either side. And that's what basically they're looking for right now. And once that happens, it's Katie bar the door. Saddam's days are numbered. If he hasn't called his travel agent by now, he's in trouble.
Okay. Colonel Oliver North and Corporal Fritz with the 1st Marines Expeditionary Force. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Best of luck to you, and we look forward to hearing back from you soon. Catherine.
I want to bring you up to date on the other big development this evening. Ali Hassan al-Majid, Chemical Ali, the cousin of Saddam Hussein, his body has been found in Basra, along with that of his bodyguard and the head of the Iraqi intelligence services in Basra. This is very significant. I want to bring in former UN weapons inspector Tim Trevan, who is in our Washington, D.C. bureau. Just explain to people who are listening how important Chemical Ali was to Saddam Hussein and the use of weapons of mass destruction.
He's very important. He's the first cousin of Saddam Hussein, and he's a very trusted henchman. He's in the very inner circle of the Baath Party regime. He is the person who ordered the chemical attack on the Kurdish village of Halabja, which killed thousands of people with chemical weapons. He's been responsible for the brutal repression of the uprising down in the Shia areas. So he is one of those people who is most feared within the country.
I'm asking you to speculate, but would it be your belief that given how he's in the inner circle, that Chemical Ali would have been one of the few who might know where the weapons of mass destruction have been hidden in Iraq?
I think that's absolutely the case. He would know. He would be one of those who would be advising Saddam on whether and when to use them and how to use them. So he certainly would have been one of those in the know.
So there must have been some sort of calculation by the military that it was better for us to take out Chemical Ali because of not only his position of power and the symbolic importance of taking him out of action versus the information that he could have brought to us if he had been captured.
I'm sure the calculation is that there's multiple sources of information about the weapons of mass destruction program. Certainly there are thousands of scientists involved in the programs overall, and they will be able to help. There's still a firm belief that the documentation, the archives of the past programs still exist, and that will help uncover things. And there will have been certainly very many people involved in the process of hiding the weapons from the inspectors and deploying them if they were deployed. So just killing one of those people doesn't mean that you're going to lose the information. Once the fighting stopped, there'll be plenty of sources, avenues of investigation to pursue. In the meantime, of course, there's a huge symbolic value to getting rid of this man. Certainly the Kurds were very worried about his possibly using chemical weapons against the Kurds during this campaign. And as each one of these senior Baath Party officials is confirmed dead, I think you will get to a stage where the Iraqi populace, their terror of the regime will start to dissolve, and then we will start getting the Iraqi population on our side, helping to point out who the Fedayeen are, who the Republican Guards who've dropped their uniforms are, and helping root out the Baath Party officials. At that stage, the cleanup operation will be so much easier and less dangerous for our troops.
Chemical Ali was not only accused of using gas against the Kurds, but he was also responsible for suppressing the uprising by the Shiites in 1991 after the first Gulf War. Do you believe that the death, according to British officials, of Chemical Ali has facilitated the movement of British forces into Basra at this time?
I'm sure it will have done, even if it's only marginally, because I think in terms of military capability, there's been such a total mismatch between the forces of the coalition and the Iraqis that they could have moved in militarily at any stage had they chosen to. I think they chose not to in order to reduce civilian casualties. So I think the issue there is more that by taking him out, you take out a large part of the equation of terror brought upon the Iraqi people.
Tim, I know you're a former weapons inspector and not a diplomat, but I want to ask you a question that has to do a little bit with politics.
I was actually a diplomat before I was a weapons inspector.
Well, there you go. Well, then I'm asking the right guy. How significant is it that the British were involved in securing what is really Iraq's second city, the second largest city, and in going after, targeting, and killing Chemical Ali? The fact that this was a British military operation, of course, part of the Allied coalition, but the fact that the British headed up such a key and crucial element of this war?
I would think that there would be two elements to that decision. I think the first element is that I think the British would have probably had problems keeping up with the American armor going that distance in that period of time, although I'm sure some of my British military friends will be upset with me for saying that. The second element is we have decades of experience of urban warfare and urban policing operations in Northern Ireland. So many of our troops who are out there in Basra have that experience of urban warfare. And that being the first expected coalition instance of urban warfare in the Iraq campaign, it made sense for the British to be given that job.
Let me ask you then, just to continue on with the discussion about diplomacy and the meeting that's going to take place, I believe, later on today in Northern Ireland between President Bush and Prime Minister Blair. Give us a sense what you think those discussions are going to be like. These are two world leaders who have been best friends in many ways, but who have some disagreements in terms of what the future of Iraq will look like, what kind of role the United Nations will play. If you were to give us your best guess about some of those discussions, how do you think it's going to go?
Certainly the Europeans, and the British are amongst the Europeans in this regard, hold the UN institutions in much higher regard and esteem than do the general American populace. There's a feeling that even if the UN institutions didn't work properly in this instance, we should be trying to repair them and make them better for the future rather than abandoning them. But I would suspect that the result is going to be that the UN will be invited by the coalition to come in and help in the humanitarian aspects of rebuilding Iraq. I think both sides agree that the UN agencies, the technical agencies like the World Food Programme, the World Health Organization, UNICEF, are very good at doing what they do.